Most people walk through life haunted not by ghosts but by parts of themselves they've never met. They keep dating the same person in different bodies. They chase love but feel emptier with every connection. They post smiles and feel hollow minutes later. And deep down they know something's wrong, something's broken, but they can't name it. If you feel like you're not connecting with anyone anymore, if you feel tired of pretending, if something inside you is screaming for truth in a world obsessed with filters and roles, this video's for you.
People will call it misogyny because it's easier than facing the truth. It's easier to point fingers than to look within. But what if this isn't about blame at all? What if this is about seeing the wound beneath the behavior, yours, hers, everyone's? Carl Jung didn't hate women. He studied the human psyche with surgical precision. He saw patterns long before the rest of the world caught up. And he warned us, not about gender roles, but about what happens when we lose contact with the soul. Jung spoke of the Animus, the masculine force within every woman, and what happens when it's distorted, not strengthened, but poisoned by unresolved pain, unmet needs, and collective pressure to become something unnatural. He said when a woman disconnects from her essence, she doesn't grow stronger. She grows harder. She performs strength, but forgets how to feel. She fights, but forgets how to receive. She leads, but forgets how to love. This isn't hate. It's heartbreak. It's watching something sacred be turned into performance. It's watching connection rot into control. Jung wasn't judging, he was warning. And the fact that we still can't talk about this without backlash proves just how far we've strayed from the truth. You feel it in the silence after the conversation ends, in the way people talk without listening, in the way eyes meet but never soften. There's a tension now, a static in the air between men and women, like we're standing on opposite sides of a glass wall, mimicking connection, but never really touching. Something cracked? Quietly, deeply, and no one wants to admit it. We call it independence, progress, equality. But beneath the slogans and empowerment campaigns, we've lost something sacred: trust, polarity, that magnetic pull between masculine and feminine that once made love feel like a dance. Now, it feels like a war. Everyone's guarded, everyone's keeping score, and no one wants to be the first to surrender. Jung called this a spiritual illness, an archetypal collapse. When the roles we're meant to complement begin to compete, the soul fractures. We stop seeing each other as sacred opposites and start seeing threats, projections, targets. And when that happens, love can't grow. Intimacy dies before it's even born. The connection turns into calculation. Affection becomes strategy. And we wonder why everything feels fake. It's because we've lost the language of the heart. And no relationship survives when both people are too armored to feel. She wasn't always like this. The coldness, the sharp tone, the way she scans you like a resume. It wasn't always there. Once, there was softness, a natural warmth, but somewhere along the line, she learned that softness gets punished. I've seen that look before, the quiet tension behind the smile. I've been in conversations where someone laughs, but their eyes never land. You're not imagining it. Vulnerability gets exploited. So she hardened. She built walls, not because she wanted to, but because the world made her believe she had to. And now she doesn't know how to come back down. She's in constant fight mode, performing strength like a shield. And we praise her for it. We call it power. But power without peace is just tension. Jung understood this long before we had the words for it. He didn't say women are broken. He said they're wounded, disconnected from their own essence, forced to act like men, compete like men, win like men, all while being told to stay desirable, feminine, soft. The result? A generation of women who don't know who they are without the armor, and a generation of men who feel punished just for showing up. But this isn't about blame, it's about grief. Because what's been lost isn't just connection, it's identity. And until we see the wound beneath the mask, we'll keep fighting ghosts instead of healing each other. You thought staying quiet made you kind. That compromise made you mature. That shrinking yourself to make her comfortable meant you were evolving. But now, you feel it. The slow erosion of your spirit. The silence doesn't feel noble anymore. It feels like self-betrayal. Somewhere along the way, men were told to sit down, be softer, smile more, apologize for who they are. And you listened. You toned it down, you played it safe. I've played the nice guy too. It nearly broke me, smiling through disapproval, shrinking just enough to stay wanted. But Jung warned what happens when a man represses his vital energy, his fire, his edge, his sense of mission. He doesn't become more lovable. He becomes a ghost of himself. You're not supposed to be aggressive, but you are meant to be grounded. You're not here to dominate, but you are meant to lead. That doesn't mean controlling her. It means not abandoning yourself. That masculine core, it's not toxic, it's sacred, but you've been trained to question it, to dim it down, to trade power for approval. And now you wonder why you feel numb, why your relationships feel like you're walking on eggshells. It's because you're not in them, you're performing. You don't need to be less of a man. You need to come back to who you were before the world told you to apologize for it. There's a reason things feel off, even when they look fine on the surface. A reason why conversations feel hollow, why dating feels like performance art, why love feels more like survival than sanctuary. It's because we're not showing up as ourselves, we're showing up as fragments, masks, echoes of pain we haven't dealt with. Jung called it the shadow, the hidden parts of us we refuse to see, the wounds we bury so deep they start living for us. And that's what's happening now. The shadow isn't just personal, it's collective. It's shaping how women express power, how men show emotion, how both sexes hide behind armor and call it strength. We're not falling in love anymore, we're colliding traumas. And no one's taking off the mask long enough to feel what's real. She wasn't born angry. She became that way from years of pretending she didn't need anyone, from being taught that needing was weakness, that softness was a risk, that love had to be earned, proved, fought for. So she shifted. She started performing instead of feeling, winning instead of receiving. And now she doesn't know how to stop. Her nervous system stays on guard. It's not just bad luck. It's not the city you live in, the apps you use, or some cosmic joke. There's a reason the same story keeps repeating with different faces. And it's not out there, it's in you. You keep attracting what feels familiar, not what's healthy. Because the part of you that's still unhealed is doing the choosing. That woman who ignores your boundaries, she mirrors the version of you that doesn't respect your own. That partner who pulls away the moment you open up, she reflects the fear you carry around being truly seen. Jung said it clearly, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But this isn't fate. It's a pattern. And patterns don't break until you do. Until you stop asking why everyone leaves and start asking why you keep inviting in people who aren't equipped to stay. You don't need to chase different people. You're pouring into a well that never fills and calling it love. You need to become someone who no longer aligns with chaos, who no longer craves what hurts. When you heal, your taste changes. Not because the world does, but because you do. And the moment you stop needing to be chosen is the moment you start choosing yourself. You keep hoping that one day she'll get it, that she'll change, that she'll soften, that she'll finally meet you with the same love you're ready to give. But what if she doesn't? What if she never does? What if she's not meant to? What if the entire point of this pain was to force you to stop outsourcing your healing to someone else? It's not her job to make you whole. It's not her responsibility to validate your worth. And the more you wait for her to fix what's broken inside you, the further you drift from your center. Jung warned us, when you depend on another to complete you, you don't find love. You create bondage. You become reactive, not rooted, passive, not present. And maybe that's the hardest truth to swallow, that the only one who can save you is you. Not by becoming colder, not by walking away with bitterness, but by finally walking toward yourself. The version of you who doesn't need to be chosen to feel valuable, who doesn't wait for permission to stand tall. That's the work. Not fixing her, not waiting on change, becoming the kind of man who never again abandons himself, no matter who stays or leaves. You say you want a woman who's grounded, open, feminine, soft, but are you a man she'd feel safe being all that with? You want her to let her guard down, but you're still hiding behind yours. You want her to trust you, but you don't trust your own voice. You crave depth, but you haven't dug deep into your own soul. Most men are walking around like dimmed light bulbs, functional but never glowing. That's the contradiction, and that's where most men stay stuck. Jung believed that the outer world mirrors the inner one. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. If you're still seeking approval, still afraid of confrontation, still bending your truth just to avoid being alone, then what you'll find are women who reflect that same fragmentation, not because they're broken, but because you are still meeting life from a fractured place. She will only open where you hold presence. She will only soften where you are strong, not controlling, but anchored. That kind of strength doesn't yell. It doesn't chase. It doesn't flinch. It just is. So if you're waiting for the right woman to show up before you become the right man, you're already behind. Be the ground before you ask her to land. Be whole before you ask her to open. She exists, but she's not easy to find because she's not loud. She's not in the spotlight. She's not performing for likes or building her worth through validation. She's not chasing attention. She's building herself quietly, intentionally. And that kind of woman doesn't just fall into your path. She's rare, not because she's hiding, but because she's healing. Most of what you see today is noise, filtered smiles, masked pain, women who are constantly on but never really present. It's not their fault. They've been told to survive by staying ahead, staying guarded, staying untouchable, so they do. And the ones who are doing the real inner work, they're busy becoming. That's why they don't show up in the usual places, because they're not playing the usual games. Jung said we don't meet others by accident, we meet them by resonance. If you haven't met her yet, maybe it's because she wouldn't feel safe in your current frequency. Maybe she's not missing, you are. So don't just look harder, grow deeper, become the kind of man who doesn't just crave depth, but embodies it. Then watch what shifts, because the woman you're seeking is looking for the man you're still becoming. You weren't born numb. That came later, after the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the years of swallowing your truth just to keep the peace. But deep down, that fire is still there. You feel it flicker in moments of silence, when no one's watching, when your soul whispers, "This isn't who I am." That voice, that ache, that's your power trying to rise again. The world told you to tame it, to be more agreeable, more passive, more safe. So you did. You dulled your edges. You made yourself smaller. But that's not strength, that's survival. And survival isn't living, it's hiding. Jung believed the masculine energy isn't about force, it's about direction, intention, presence. And when you abandon that, you don't just lose your edge, you lose yourself. You don't need more motivation, you need memory. Remember who you were before fear stepped in, before doubt told you to dim. That version of you, the one who moved with clarity, who didn't apologize for his truth, that's the fire. And it's not gone, it's waiting, not for permission, not for a relationship, but for a decision. The moment you stop seeking validation and start standing in conviction, everything changes. That's how you reclaim your fire, not by fighting, but by remembering. You keep looking out there for signs, for answers, for someone to tell you what to do next. But nothing changes until you look in here. Jung warned us, not with fear, but with truth. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. And most people never wake up. They stay lost in noise, in roles, in cycles that feel like fate, but are really just unexamined patterns. This isn't just philosophy, it's a map. Because the moment you stop blaming women, society, the culture, and start asking what parts of you are still asleep, that's when the shift begins. That's when your life stops feeling like a reaction and starts becoming a creation. But be ready. Awakening costs everything you built on false ground. It costs ego, illusion, comfort. And that's why most people run. They choose the dream because the dream feels safer than the truth. But you're still here, still listening, still searching for something real. That alone means you're not lost. You're on the edge of something. And Jung's warning wasn't a threat, it was an invitation to stop escaping, to meet yourself fully, and to realize that the life you're meant to live won't be found out there. It starts with you, right here, right now. You're not broken, you're breaking open. And there's a difference. The pain you feel right now, the discomfort, the loneliness, the confusion, it's not a punishment. It's a signal, a sacred invitation to finally step out of the roles you've been performing and step into the truth you've been avoiding. Most people numb it, distract it, deny it, but you're still here, which means a part of you is ready to begin. This isn't about fixing yourself to be loved. It's about remembering you were already worthy before the world told you to prove it. It's about shedding every version of yourself that was built on fear, validation, or survival. Because only when everything false falls apart can something real be born. Jung's path wasn't easy. It was deep, personal, painful, and that's why it works, because real transformation doesn't come from outside advice. It comes from meeting your shadow and not running from it. From standing in the wreckage and realizing, this is where I begin. So if you feel cracked open right now, good. That means something in you is alive. Let that be your start. Not the beginning of a new mask, but the beginning of something honest. Something whole. Something finally yours. If something in you feels heavier now, don't run from it. That weight you feel in your chest, that ache that wasn't there before, it's not sadness, it's truth. It's your soul stretching awake after years of being asleep. And waking up hurts, because once you see clearly, you can't unsee. Once you remember who you are, pretending feels unbearable. But this is where it begins. Not in certainty, but in honesty. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stop lying to yourself. You just need to stay with the discomfort long enough to let it turn into direction. That's how you rebuild, not by rushing, but by rising. So if this stirred something inside you, let it. Don't numb it. Don't scroll past it. Let it burn through the noise. Let it make you quiet enough to hear yourself again. And now just one thing. If you're ready to keep going, watch the next video on your screen. Don't do it for me. Do it for the version of you that refuses to keep living asleep. The soul does not lie, and thank you for being a part of Mosaic Mind.